A-12. It seems a bit unusual even trying to pronounce this one on video, but according to his parents, Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk and his wife Grimes, that's how it really is pronounced. X-A-12. Although quite bizarre of a name, X-A-12's parents have an explanation. X stands for, well, just X, the unknown mathematical variable. Ash is said to stand for the Elven spelling of the word AI, which of course stands for artificial intelligence. And A-12? That's what the topic of this video is going to be on. A-12 refers to the couple's favorite aircraft of all time, the Lockheed A-12 reconnaissance aircraft. Although you might not have heard of this plane, you might have heard of its successor, the famous SR-71 Blackbird, also popularly known as the fastest plane ever created. So, let's dive into the A-12 and see why it's fascinating enough for a billionaire couple to name their own kid after it. Started as a CIA project to create new, stealthy, and extremely fast aircraft during the peak of the Cold War, design on the A-12 started all the way back from 1958, under the, at the time, top secret CIA-directed Project Gusto. An internal team in Lockheed Martin began development of a project known as Archangel, and in July of 1958 created the first iteration, the Archangel 1, or just A-1. Within the next year, they had released designs for the Archangel 2, 3, all the way to 11, each of which improved on its previous design. And by 1960, Lockheed officially developed, designed, and manufactured the A-12. And shortly thereafter, the CIA ordered a dozen A-12 aircraft. But it wasn't just any plane that was designed. This one was well ahead of its time, perhaps even multiple decades ahead. To begin, the airframe was constructed almost entirely of titanium, a material which is very difficult to obtain, and even more difficult to machine and form into a usable airframe. In a personal memoir stated by one of the designers of the A-12, he stated that it was so difficult to find the precious titanium alloy that the CIA conducted a worldwide search of the material, and secretively, using third parties and fake-named companies, managed to locate the material in one area, the Soviet Union. The same Soviet Union that was America's Cold War enemy. But with a bit of trickery and finesse through these fake and third-party companies, the Russians never even had a clue of how they were actually contributing to the creation of the very airplane being rushed into construction to spy on their homeland. But titanium wasn't the only thing on the plane that made it exceptional. To avoid detection from Soviet forces when it finally became airborne, the aircraft also had to be made exceptionally stealthy by using a special radar-absorbing composite coated around the plane. The application of stealth technology on aircraft was still largely an unexplored concept at this time, and therefore the A-12 was a major impetus in its widespread development within future aircraft. And lastly, but certainly not least, perhaps its most defining characteristic, its speed. Up until this time, aircraft were still struggling to comfortably break the speed of sound, or Mach 1. After all, the sound barrier had just been broken for the very first time less than a decade ago, when Chuck Yeager flew his Bell X-1 just above Mach 1. Yet, during its very first sets of test flights ever, with its powerful J-75 ramjet engines, the A-12 comfortably broke the Mach 1 barrier. Not just slightly, but doubling it. And by the next year, in 1963, with the introduction of a new J-58 ramjet engine, the A-12 hit a top speed of Mach 3.3. That's over 2,200 miles per hour, or 3,540 kilometers an hour. Fast enough to get you from Washington, D.C. to LA in less than 1 hour. Needless to say, the CIA was impressed, and on May of 1967, the first A-12 left the United States to begin its service. In its first mission ever, an A-12 was flown over North Vietnam during the peak of the Vietnam War, photographing surface-to-air missile sites, flying at a mind-boggling 80,000 feet at around Mach 3.1, flying dozens of sorties over the next year, The North Vietnamese and Soviet Union eventually found out about the aircraft, and on many instances attempted to fire missiles to destroy the A-12. But the aircraft was literally so fast that the missiles could not catch up to it, and self-detonated well before impact. As quickly as it came, however, the A-12 was quickly put out of service just a year after its first mission. However, its legacy was enormous, and it was developed into the venerable SR-71 Blackbird, which is essentially just a larger variant of the A-12 with more powerful cameras and sensors. And to this present day, the A-12 is still seen as one of the, if not the most technologically advanced aircraft ever built, and still, well over half a century later, holds the world record for the fastest speed ever achieved by any air-breathing vehicle. And so, with that, the A-12 marked its place in the world of technology. And although many are impressed with its capabilities, one couple in particular took a bit of additional interest, and were so intrigued by the plane that they decided to name their own son after it. After all, in Elon Musk's own words, the A-12, it has no weapons, no defenses, just outright speed. It's great in battle, but non-violent. The fact that A equals Archangel is a plus because that's my favorite song of all time as well. And there you have it. Confused as to why a newborn baby's name ends in the number 12? Now you know. And let's hope that as time goes on, more and more people understand, for little X-A-12's sake.